Well, this is an American clock that I bought on the internet. I understood it was in a pretty bad state, and consequently, when it arrived, I wasn't in the least bit surprised. In fact, in many ways, I was delighted, because the person who sold it to me was absolutely honest about it, and it's quite exciting. The sections on the roof, the top of the clock, were in separate pieces, but it came complete with the gong and the pendulum. I've started trying to clean it up to see how I can get on with it, as you can see here on this particular piece, whereas this is how it arrived, with the top on there, and that little finial goes on top of this and this secures it through there and through the top of the clock. The clock itself is, I think, I'm not sure where it comes from, but the works appear to be on an American style, so, and it's got an eagle on the back, so I've assumed that it is American. It's quite dramatic. It's got Palladian pillars on either side. It did take a bit of a knocking on arrival. The back door here had a bit of damage done to it, but that's what happens when you get a clock that comes through the post. And you can see that there is a lot of marking on the pillars, terrible marking in here. As you can see here, absolutely appalling. I mean, a dreadful thing to try and have to sort out. Are really a nightmare, and as I explained, I did try and get them off the roof, and I have managed to do it with a certain amount of success. But if you take a good look at those blemishes on the side, they are pretty awful, and they don't just rub off. It's gone right into the sheen. You can see the sheen on the clock down here. That's a beautiful high polish, but to get these off, that'll have to go. And it's going to be a nightmare because as you can see here, in there, if I try and get that magnified, you can see what a nightmare I've got in there. It's not just dirt and things, it's absolute staining and all these little pockmarks. What I think I'll have to do is, which a tip that I took from Treetop Spider, is to remove the top section entirely, take all this off by slipping a knife underneath and hammering that through under there, and lifting this off, freeing the pillars, and then I'll be able to get at these sections properly. But you can see, as I said, it is pretty grotty, terrible, and you can't possibly hope to get in there without taking it to pieces. I mean, they are really impregnated, and so that's my challenge. The clock itself is, I'm sure, is American. I've had it out and I'll just illustrate now. It's I've taken it to pieces, but the back of it has got the eagle motif on it. See it behind the hammer. Let's lift the hammer, then you'll probably be able to see it more clearly. There's the American eagle, FM. ALM, I'm not sure what that is at the moment, but I'm going to look it up. And then if you look at it inside, you can see that in spite of the fact that, which is not usual with the American clocks where they've got no barrel for the spring, these have got barrels, which is French style. The style is French as well, but you can see that the pinions in there have got trundles, and I'm not sure, you can see those turning now there, as opposed to having a leaf, leaves on the pinion here. They've got little rods, trundles, which is American style more than French style, where they have got leaves which interlace. These are better in some respects because they can be replaced. If they get stripped, as you can easily strip on the traditional clock, it's a real problem, and you have to have it well replaced virtually. Okay, so that's my challenge. It is a challenge, and I'll come back and see how it goes. If the clock doesn't really succeed, I can probably put a French one instead, which I've got here, but it's very dirty. But you can see the difference in it. In this case, the you can see the leaves are here on the pinions are leaves and not trundles, and they're solid, and so if you strip those off you've got a real problem. But this is a very dirty clock, much dirtier than the one we've got, and that won't make any difference, but I prefer to keep it original on, I think, the American style. So I'll come back to you when I've started cleaning up the marble and taking the stains out and polishing it. Well, to continue where I left off a little earlier, I have come to the conclusion that I can't do as Treetop Spider suggested. You can see what he did in how I restored this clock, step-by-step guide to Slate clock restoration. What he did there was to separate the top section from the bottom section, and that freed the pillars on either side. But in this clock there isn't another horizontal top. In his there is, and in this clock there is only this horizontal slab, and then inside you've got nothing here but the carcass of the clock. And you can see inside there's the plaster of Paris carcass top with glue all around it. And the way that this is constructed, I did try, but I stopped just simply because I felt that it's going to be ruinous. I used a knife to go in there and tapped it gently, but the resistance was too much, and it's difficult. in here. It's the devil's own job to get into these, and I've got a problem with the pillars too, because they look, fantastic, but it is an American clock, so they're following the French precedent, but they haven't quite got the same finesse that the French had. I mean, for instance, this scene here, which is nice and traditional, will only stand re-blacking or polishing with beeswax or something like that to make it glow, as will this, because this is not a brass and it's a non-ferrous metal, so it's not particularly the sort of quality that you want to write home about. And funnily enough, it's the same with these pillars. This one I think is brass, this one is a mix, and this one is iron. And I do that by with a little magnet, a fridge magnet. It has no adhesion there on any part of it, so that's probably all brass. It's steel, because that's sticking on, and this one the same, steel. So I've got to be very careful. I've got to black these and retain their black, and retain the black around the base. That, I think, I might try and polish those. I'll see how it goes. I like the little brass rim on it. And it's the same on this side. That one's brass all the way through. This one is brass all the way through, but that one is iron. So we've got a bit of a dilemma here in the American quality, I think, is not up to the standard that the continental craftsmen put into it. And that is also evident when I'm studying it. This is just a matter of interest, is that the motifs here and down here are not done with the same sort of panache that the French do it with. The lines are much heavier, and everything is a bit, put it bluntly, coarser. But having said that, I think it's going to be a lovely clock when it's finished, if I can get it up to the sort of standard that I want to get it up to. It will look stunning, and it is American, and because it's American, it's unusual. Most of these were French, and some were English, but the French were the past masters. Well, in my view, I mean, I'm only a novice, so I don't really know. Don't go by what I say. But the French were really so good. So I'm going to stop now, and I will start doing this, and I'll show you the work in progress in a minute.